So we start the year with some Italian VC crossing border and investing in some very interesting deals. One is vet service platform Lupa, raising 4 million from seed money. The founders are Italian. They want to essentially simplify everything that is bureaucracy for the veterinary industry. Ton of Italian investors from the early stage part, so including, just to mention a few, 2100 Ventures and Vento, basically by Exor Ventures.
The type of offering, they're dating back the 90s, the early 2000s. It's a market ripe for innovation.
Lingotto Investment Management is an investment entity controlled by Exor, leading a 120 million Series B round in Neura Robotics. Let's jump in with the biggest round of the week. Let's start from Bikeflip, very interesting. Bike eCommerce raising 1.6 million from a series of investors. So here it's interesting just because I think they're tapping into a stealth market that is actually there. So back 2 years ago, there was the craze for e-bikes. There was a huge peak in the market. Everyone was buying electric bicycle, but then everything dropped essentially post-COVID. And what is interesting is that these guys are actually trying to revive, providing a very good outlook and service to the people that want to trade used bikes, get components, and kind of leverage that market. So kudos to them, good fundraise, not a small one for sure. I thought it was interesting actually.
Yep, agree. This means a couple of things. So e-commerce is not dead apparently, so they are still able to raise capital with fresh ideas. As you said, they're not just setting up a bike e-commerce. They're trying to put some innovation into it. For example, in the announcement, there was also the mention about the packaging that they are setting up. They actually invented in order to minimize space occupied by the bike and simplify the assembly once the final customer receives the package. So there is some innovation there. Good for them about this round.
Awesome. All right. A few things are moving also. I would focus on the investment side. So at the beginning of the year, Italian investor seems to be active, especially for deals that are happening abroad. So let's talk about that for a second on two different levels. One is vet service platform Lupa, raising 4 million from seed money. So essentially, this is interesting because the founders are Italian. They want to essentially simplify everything that is bureaucracy for the veterinary industry, which apparently is a very sort of backward-looking industry that needs a lot of new technology happening in the space. So very interesting place. Maybe something that, exist in other markets, so finding like an old school market that needs tech enabling, so that's interesting, and Lupa is exactly working on that. A ton of Italian investors from the early stage part, so including, just to mention a few, 2100 Ventures and Vento, basically by Exor Ventures. So I thought it was particularly interesting on this side. So
yep. Yeah, nice round. I have to say, I think we will see this play. So what Lupa is doing, basically creating a new modern ERP for veterinaries with Copilot and AI integrated. And I'm under the impression that we will see this play emerge in a lot of verticals. So new generations of ERPs and Copilots for professionals will be coming up in the next month. And we'll see a few rounds about this, and expect to see many rounds in several countries in Europe about this. There is some regulation, there are specifics about the economy, so I think 2025 it will be the year for this type of startups.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe that's the kind of the acceleration of enterprise software. So instead of back in the days having a big software being sliced up and customized depending on the needs of the clients, now because coding is becoming more widespread and accelerated by AI, maybe developing like specific solution for industries is maybe will acquire like a pace, a faster and faster pace than before. So
Yeah,
that's very, very interesting for sure. Yeah.
it's part that and part that type of offering. So the ERP or the software for the professional, the medic, the doctor, the veterinary, the lawyer. So they're dating back the 90s, the early 2000s. So they are built with a logic and approach that's completely different than today. So
Yeah,
it's a market ripe for innovation.
absolutely. Awesome. I would add to that also like an insight about sales professionals. You mentioned the report to me, the E16Z report on the trends for 2025. One of the points was exactly the fact of empowering salespeople so that all the basically the regular onboarding and boring tasks are automated through ERP, dedicated ERP, and then salespeople can really focus on customized selling and delicate sort of negotiation. So that's particularly powerful, and it's definitely within this trend of I would say tech-powered professionals. Yeah, very interesting for sure.
Yeah, get ready, Jack. This is the year of agents. They are coming. So
I know. I'm kind of excited and scared at the same time.
yeah, me too.
All right, fantastic. So talking about also a few new funds. Actually, no, before that, let's go back to another investment entity investing abroad, which is Lingotto Investment Management. So Lingotto Investment Management is an investment entity controlled by Exor, so definitely in the Exor family, leading a 120 million Series B round in Neura Robotics. So a few interesting elements here. So first of all, a lead Italian investor investing abroad. So the leadership part, I think they're pretty significant. And the second part is the topic, which is the kind of the robotics that they are developing, which it's inserted in a trend which we think for sure will change and will evolve, especially this year. So pretty impressive, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a huge round in an area that I think is super hot, super interesting right now in Europe, and also in Italy in particular. So Italy is a strong manufacturing country with quite a spread out robotics, installed robotics base. And it's a very, very, very interesting round. And seeing the Exer family leading around in the space, it says something about how they see the future.
No, absolutely, and also some few interesting investors actually in this space, I would say. So we've talked about robotics before in other episode, and again, the question is whether the market will be ready for a generic humanoid robot accomplishing tasks from manufacturing to washing the dishes, or there will be like specific task-oriented robots doing the same things. Maybe there is no dichotomy here. Maybe both are going to be developed at some point. So that's probably one way to think about this. But yeah, what is interesting is probably that Neura Robotics is taking like a specific stance in actually like making really focused task robots empowered by AI. And on an interesting note is that they're working also on what is defined as cognitive robotics. So this is a very interesting keyword to keep in mind, which is essentially robots that essentially can react to the environment and make autonomous decision. Well, algorithmic based decision for sure. So that's something that is interesting. So they have an input. There is some thinking, define thinking the way you wish. Let's call it thinking for simplicity. And then there is like a reaction to that kind of thinking. So very, very interesting, very, very forward looking for sure. Awesome. Moving on really quick. Let's give a quick shout out to the people, the GPs of Algebris, launching Algebris Climatech with 60 million in initial commitment and with a target of 100 million. So they are probably going to be some of the big players in ClimateTech in Italy. So it's a fairly big fund, very ambitious, and made by some professional GPs. So again, as we saw in 2024, new funds are emerging. This year is no different, and we really hope that new operators will actually populate the market. So definitely kudos to these guys.
Yeah, and if I want to add an observation here. This is not the first, but one of the first cases of an asset manager not coming from a venture capital experience, raising a venture capital fund. And I believe this is something we will see more often going forward in Italy, in part because of regulation. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult and expensive to set up a new fund from scratch. So I think there will be platforms hosting teams that want to raise VCs on the one side. On the other side, these are asset managers that are covering the market and expanding their offering. Also thanks to legislation that's pushing traditional LPs to invest into venture capital. So there's an interesting demand and supply.
Very good point.
It started last year, so Nextalia is one of the first examples that comes to mind. But I think we will see more of these.
That's a great point.
It is fascinating. Traditional, let me say, experienced asset managers from the private equity or hedge funds even are moving into VC. This is going to be exciting.
Let me add some gasoline to that fire. What's happening with the pension funds in Italy also? So apparently there is this new thing where institutional pension fund can or will have to, I'm not sure exactly, and then you can tell me more, basically we can allocate to venture capital assets. There is a lot of like new movement there. So thinking that there's going to be like pension fund players that definitely like will move something this year. So we'll see something interesting, either them working with traditional VCs and historic VC from Italy, or helping the growth of new GPs raising funds through institutional investor. So it's good that CDP did a lot of work so far, but now I think there can be like a big swing with institutional and pension funds for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Very good. Good start of the year for sure. So also, let's talk about a little bit research. So Ernst Young Italy compiled what is usually called the Venture Capital Barometer, providing us data with what has been happening in 2024, one of the first publication of the year, Nick. And it kind of aligns with what you also track, the Week in Italian Startup Tracker. So that's pretty interesting. Showing like a few interesting trends. So that's for people that haven't the chance to read it, please go online and definitely download it and take a look at it. Yeah,
it's very, it's short but dense with information about the market. So long story short, Absolutely. There was a slight increase in funds raised by Italian startups. A lot of the funding is concentrated as usual in just a handful of companies. There is a huge concentration in Lombardy, so the action seems to happen around Milan, in the Milan area, let's say so, and the broader region. And there are much more information coming from the report. So if you want to have a good understanding of what happened, so that's a good starting point.
Awesome. All right, and finally, for our usual AI corner, let's talk about
Colosseum.
Colosseum. Very interesting. So iGenius releases Colosseum 355B, which is an LLM powering agentic AI for regulated industries. So we talked before on how one of the big problems of AI models is that, especially for data sensitive and privacy sensitive regulated industries, AI can have some challenges. Basically, what iGenius is doing is providing those industry to train their own model in a kind of maybe it's not the right term, but in a closed environment, in a way that they can actually protect data, but at the same time leverage the power of a trained LLM on those specific data. So definitely trying to tap on some of the best the most profitable regulated industries, and a very interesting move from iGenius. I mean, we've seen these guys evolving in the past couple of years, and every time is always like a joy to see like how they're moving and where they're moving. So definitely
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, nice, nice. It's I could almost see them, saying, okay, let's take a blue ocean strategy approach to this. So, where is everybody going? Where are they competing? Uh, so let's take a different approach, and that's interesting. I wasn't expecting this approach, but I have to say kudos to them for this sequence of announcements. They were perfect, I believe. So we are moving into foundational LLMs. Check, nice. Then in a few months, we are partnering with NVIDIA. And we are getting our hands on a huge cluster that will enable us to train our LLMs. And now this, so perfect. Execution is perfect, I would say. So let's see
I
what the
agree.
market needs.
We should invite them to the pod and chat with them
Yeah.
for sure. Very interesting. All right, this brings us to the end. Thank you, Nick, for joining, and I'll see you next week for the next
Thank you.
episode.
Thank you, Jack, for hosting. Ciao, everybody. See you in a week. Take care.